Welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Hello and welcome to the STR Data Lab. I'm Jamie Lane, Chief Economist at AirDNA, and I'm joined today by Rebecca Lombardo. Rebecca is a fractional CMO and marketing strategist. And I was just hanging out with Rebecca, 2 days ago in Austin for the VR Nation conference. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks. Good to see you again.
So I just said a lot of words, and I'm not sure I actually know what they mean. So what could you tell me, one, what does fractional mean? And then the other, like, what does CMO mean in the sort of space of vacation rentals?
Sure. I just love hearing you say there might be words you don't know what they mean. That's kind of a first. So fractional CMO is basically a CMO is a chief marketing officer. So we've all heard of a chief executive officer, chief of operations. So CMO is just corporate America speak for head of marketing. And it's usually the person who's the go-between between leadership of the company and people who are actually executing the marketing. So whether that's a staff person or agency or both, they basically take the business strategy and work with the folks who are going to actually execute it so that they use the right tools in the right place. I would say they're also the biggest advocate for the voice of the customer, the guest, the homeowner. They should be like the absolute flag holder for those voices within the organization. And a strategist is really just somebody who says, okay, this is the business plan, and here's what we're going to do in marketing in order to achieve those business goals, mainly revenue.
Okay. So, and I sort of get that now, sort of, and what marketing sort of does for a vacation rental business. But like, and you've worked across travel, SaaS, media, and large companies. Sort of, what drew you into the vacation rental space?
The people. I mean, you guys are great. I mean, it's just I love the people in this industry. It's unlike anything else.
Yeah. So, and what was your first array? So, what was your introduction into vacation rentals?
So I was CMO at True Place. They do photography and virtual tours for vacation rentals. So that's how I got introduced to the space.
All right. So, as many of our sort of listeners know, I'm a short-term rental host. I wouldn't call myself professional by any means. But when I think about marketing my properties, like, that's just something I leave to Airbnb or Vrbo or Booking.com. So, like, what is it that someone marketing a professional property management company is sort of doing to promote the brand, to drive bookings, to increase owners? Like, what is actually the day-to-day look like for and someone and running marketing for a property management company?
I love that you said that Airbnb and Vrbo and stuff are marketing your properties. They're not marketing your properties. They're listing your properties.
Okay.
So the difference between listing your property and marketing your property is where I come in. So you can list your property, right? Like you can put photos, you can put words, and you can list it. If you want to market your property, that means generating demand for your product. How do you generate demand for your product or interest in your product? You make it appealing to the audience that you're trying to reach. You put something in there that you know is going to resonate or connect with the guest or the homeowner that you're trying to reach. That's marketing. And that requires insight because how do I know what they want? How do I know what they want to see? How do I know what they want to read? Well, you have to do market research. You have to know your guest. And so once you know your guest or your homeowner, then you can put photos, videos, headlines that match what they want to see. So that's the difference between just listing a property and actually marketing a property on the OTAs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So when you talk about sort of marketing the property, what are the channels that you're actually doing that marketing through?
So you could do it through the OTAs, like you mentioned. You could do it, on your own website. Even on your own website, it works the same way. where you use photos and copy to do that. But again, this is just listing. If you want to start driving traffic to these places, then you've got to go to where your audience is. You got to fish where the fish are, like I say. So how do you know where the fish are? So this is where I pull data from, what's the audience look like on TikTok? What does the audience look like? What's the demographic profile on Instagram? Or, who's still actually opening emails? When do they open the emails? Who is opening them? So all of that data, all that research is publicly available. You can ask ChatGPT, you can Google it, but you align that demographic data with who your ideal persona is or your ideal customer. And then when you align that data, now you know where to fish. Now you know where to put your information, where to advertise, where to market, and that drives those eyeballs, to your properties and then hopefully a conversion.
Yeah, and ultimately, is that how you're measuring the success of a marketing strategy, is sort of bookings, conversion, or is there something else that you're sort of measuring?
I have to measure the full funnel because even if I'm getting all the bookings I want, all the conversions, if I don't know where those took place or if I don't know where I fished for those, what happens when my bookings dry up? How do I know where to go fishing again? So I measure everything throughout the whole funnel. So top of the funnel conversion would be, how many views did we get on our Instagram video? And then website traffic, how much, what do we get for return visitors? And then bottom of the funnel, how many people converted or clicked call.
Yeah. So if someone is maybe just listing on the OTAs now and thinking now, like, all right, like maybe I need to move from listing to marketing, what are the first steps that you suggest people start to think about on sort of developing their initial marketing strategy?
You've got to go right to the guest. You've got to go understand your guest really, really well. What do they like to look at? Why are they traveling? What emotional connection or, what need are you filling? Are you just like a nice to have trip or are you a bucket list must have trip? So if you go right to the guest and you understand them and you understand their current needs and priorities and, booking windows and things like that, all of those other questions will be answered for you.
So I was gonna guess that you were gonna say you gotta create a website, you gotta start thinking about how you're gonna push people to your own direct site. Like, do you think that, let's say for a 1 to 5 unit host, so someone that's maybe not onto full property management yet, maybe they have their own sort of set of properties, that a marketing strategy could exist solely with the OTAs, and pushing people to OTAs? Or do you think that it has to be married with a sort of direct booking strategy?
I think this is a really good question because I think people make a big assumption that they have a product that a lot of people want.
Mhm.
So let's start there. What product, what niche, what brand do you have that people want? And until you have, 5, 10, 15 properties, until you have a specific brand, you're just a commodity. And until you have a brand, you don't know what about your product is attracting these guests. And so I think you have to get to a certain tipping point, to be honest, to say, oh, you know what? This is my niche and I have something that nobody else has. Now I'm ready to go build a website. Now I'm ready to establish my own brand, my own company, and get some direct bookings.
Yeah, so maybe, and it's funny, I've been thinking about creating my own sort of direct booking site. Like, it's something I can easily do through, like, Uplisting or any other PMS. But, like, the sticking point for me was I couldn't come up with a brand yet. Like, I've only got 1 property. I feel like that ultimate decision of, like, what is the, like, web URL gonna be? Like, what is that brand gonna be? Like, it's such a big decision, and, like, and maybe I just need to, like, and bite the bullet and, like, know that I can change it, no one's actually gonna care what that brand is anyway. But, like, what do you think makes a vacation rental company sort of stand out from a branding perspective? Like, is there like, I don't know, I feel like there's like probably like 50 or 60 different like beach house vacation rental brands or like mountain retreat vacation rentals. And like what makes a real vacation rental like brand sort of pop?
Okay, so people are gonna hate me for saying this, but it's just the truth. So here it is. You've gotta go niche. You've gotta go very specific. And if you came out and said, I'm like a dad joke vacation rental company, and that your whole shtick was dad jokes, you're
Uh-huh.
laughing, but like, do you know how many audience members I just got you because that's your brand?
Yeah.
You immediately connected your brand with an existing audience. And now, you have these little joke cards in your unit. Like there's even like jokes in the description of the property. Now you're going to be memorable. You're going to stand out. Like people are going to resonate with your brand. And now you know what your website should be, like what your logo should be. And so I just answered all these questions by putting you in one very specific niche. And the reason people don't like to do that is they're like, well, I want to appeal to moms too, or I want to appeal to everybody. And I want all, okay, great. And you know what? The moms will come and the couples will come. But if you don't start with that niche and show that you know what you're doing in a specific area, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to have your cup kind of overflow and appeal to all these other audiences.
Yeah. So, and it could very much be like, all right, if I've got a whole lot of inventory that looks pretty similar to everyone else's in the market, like I've got to maybe start with what my brand, what my niche is going to be, and then work sort of backwards to then how do I differentiate my properties to make it align with my brand and sort of as opposed to if I've got a whole bunch of like cookie cutter homes, like if I just look at all those homes, like a brand isn't gonna sort of and magically appear. Like that's when you get to like beach house vacation rentals, like they're all like I'm sort of trying to pull something out of the hat that is just not gonna differentiate myself at all. Is that right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So is that, and let's say I was managing 50 homes and I decided that it was going to be dad joke vacation rentals. Like, is that, and it seems like something then I'd have to then go and like get all my homeowners aligned on that we're going to and lean into this niche and that they're going to have to more than likely do some sort of investment alongside with us that, to align with this brand. Like, do you see that and with strategies you've done in the past that and property managers have been able to get their homeowners aligned, or is that somewhere where you see sort of pushback?
So this is the other great thing about knowing your audience is you don't have to worry about converting somebody to get on board with it because you've already attracted the dads. The
Okay.
homeowner is the dad who makes bad dad jokes and loves your brand. And he's already on board. He's already served up his property to you and said, I want to be a part of this because I love what you're doing here.
Yeah. And so what are the other ways that you see like a clearly defined brand actually help your portfolio? Is it just like attracting guests or are there other sort of downstream sort of benefits there?
So downstream benefits would be acquisition. I'll use the example of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. While it's not exactly in vacation rentals, that was what a $500 million story, right? Where you had, for those who don't know, you had a couple who would go to hotels and they would rate the hotels on their Mr. and Mrs. Smith website based on how great the hotel was for couples for these, weekend getaways, weekend romantic retreats. Their whole brand was you can trust us to recommend a good couples weekend hotel. And Hilton, I think, bought them for $500 million, like bought the brand, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can build a brand, in a niche area and have it be majorly beneficial.
No, that's neat. And the other sort of side of this is sort of the homeowner side, right? Like every property manager has sort of typically like they talk about two constituencies, right? You have the guests and you have the homeowner. How important is a brand for sort of owner acquisition and sort of growing your inventory? Because if you don't have inventory, you don't have anything to sell to guests, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Having a built-in audience is going to be very important to the homeowner. Having that established reputation, having carved out an audience that's loyal is going to be really important because that translates to bookings and occupancy.
Hmm. And how do you feel about though, like building a funnel for sort of owner acquisition? Because it feels like there's all these tools out there that are sort of, and just take the OTAs that are built around sort of guest acquisition. Like, what does the process look like sort of building a funnel for owner acquisition though? Because it's like, even if like talk with so many people that are sort of getting started in sort of a co-hosting journey, like they maybe manage one or two properties already. They want to sort of figure out how to add more to that portfolio. Like, what are the tools? What are the sort of thought process that go of like thinking about adding to that sort of funnel of growing your business?
The most successful strategies I've seen are when you get in with a niche community. So again, sticking with that niche theme, there's a brand that is really in with like the Amish community in the Northeast. And when word got out in the community that they were stellar managers and, really ethical business people, they told their friends told their friends. And there's nothing more powerful or more likely to convert than a recommendation from a friend in your community, right? So getting in with one or two of those in that specific community really helped build their portfolio there. Likewise, on the West Coast, with another specific community that really just spread like wildfire in the community of like these people manage my property that is like a very ultra high net worth property. You spread word in that community. You don't need to necessarily be super proactive. You can grow organically quite fast that way. Now, you will reach a ceiling that way. You will have to flip over to proactive outreach where you're like scraping listings, and doing outreach, postcards, emails, things like that. But if you get in with that niche community, you can actually pick up quite a few properties that way.
Yeah. What are the, like, when you just thinking about like the communities I'm part of, like I definitely have my sort of dad joke community, uh, part of a dart league. I've got that community. So is it literally like going through all the different communities in your sort of circle and thinking about how you might sort of double down to that? Are there other sort of channels, tactics for thinking about and starting, like how you would start finding those initial groups of people?
I mean, if you think about the most successful realtors, right? We're not reinventing the wheel here. They've been doing this for ages, right? Where they start by reaching out to people they know. Um, and who do they know? They know people based on their, tennis club or yacht club or, whatever it is. So you're probably a member of like three or four communities you didn't even think about. So if you sit down and write down all the communities you're a part of, even Facebook groups you're a part of, and look at what everybody has in common, start referring to them as cohorts, then I think you'll realize that you can tap into those. And it might feel like there's no way I can go through all five communities I'm a part of. Sure, you can. Like it's just start there one to one, surface the fact that you're available and this is what you're doing. Odds are somebody knows somebody who needs that right now.
Yeah. Are there any sort of common mistakes that you've seen when people are like trying to sell themselves, sell their business to prospective owners? Like, what are the things? Yeah. What are the sort of pitfalls of doing that? Just trying to think now of like, all right, I'm going to go into those communities. I'm going to really start selling myself, selling my business. Like, what are the things I should and look out for?
Again, people are going to not want to hear this. So this is just the truth, Jamie. You have to stick with that niche. You have to differentiate from the get-go. And a lot of people don't want to do that because they're like, well, what if somebody says, oh, well, I want like, couples or families, not specifically dads. You have to stick to that because everybody else is also offering something similar. Like there's just a lot of competition out there right now. You've got the numbers on that. So the more you stick to your specific area of expertise, even if you feel like you're going to lose business because it's too niche, that is still the best way to go when reaching out.
Yeah. And and I'm a data guy. So like if I'm doing all this work, I want to start sort of tracking it, right? And I would assume like, and we're going to throw a lot of things on the wall and we're going to try to get a sense of sort of what's sticking, right? So how do you suggest people and go about tracking and measuring what works when it comes to sort of owner acquisition? Because I feel like Google gives me all these tools on sort of tracking my funnel, the OTAs, like I go into Airbnb and I get all this sort of conversion stats. Like I don't actually know how to interpret any of that, but like it's there. So it makes me feel smart when I look at it. So what is someone, or how should I be thinking about tracking it on the owner side?
Just a Google spreadsheet is fine. Yeah, you're just starting out. Like, just create a Google spreadsheet and have different tabs for the different places where you're working on your efforts, the different channels, and just track your efforts in the columns.
Okay. So it is just like, all right, like here's the groups I've sort of gone to, here's the people I've talked to, and like tracking them through the process. Here's the ones that were willing to set up a meeting with me. Here are the ones that sort of referred me to other friends, and like the ultimate results. And like may seem small at first, like I'm only tracking one or two things, but then as it snowballs, I can start to get a sense of like, all right, here's the 10, 15 different groups I talked with. Here's the ones that things actually start to resonate with. Here's the common attributes of the ones where I'm actually getting leads and getting conversion. Is it that sort of thing?
Yes, you keep track of all of those details, and it feels tedious at first because you're right. You're talking about ones and twos that you're tracking. But what you're actually doing is building a process for the future. So now you've got a template that you can use to build your process going forward. So your template is, audience target, time of year that you reached out, like amount of people you talked to, amount of people who followed up, how did they follow up? Was it email or text message? So now you have all of this information on one spreadsheet.
Okay. Maybe shifting gears a bit now, because you were in my session at VR Nation conference a couple of days ago now. And we talked about a significant chance, or at least a 50-50 chance of going into recession over the next year or so. And like, there's this sort of notion, I feel like, that when we go through a period of downturns, when revenue's contracting, that marketing is usually the first sort of expense to start to cut. Because it's variable. Like I can turn on channels, I can turn them off. Like it seems, at least on the surface, much easier than like if I'm going to cut marketing, which is maybe some ad spend, or I'm going to cut housekeeping, which is like people, like let's definitely go with the ad spend because and that's just seems easier. How do you think about sort of marketing, whether it's during recessions or even just like shocks to a market, whether it's like what we saw during COVID, or and you talked about the West Coast, like and we saw the fires out in LA, we saw the fires in Maui, like we've got hurricanes in the South and Florida. Like it feels like there's always something sort of impacting the business, and now there's sort of this big looming recession or potential recession on the future. Like, how do you think about marketing during these weird times?
So I think about the charts that you shared actually, um, where you had what happened, the lines during 2020 when everything went down, right? Because the world shut down. And then, Jamie, what happened to those lines when things started opening up and people were allowed to cross the bridge into North Carolina or were allowed to, drive into Florida and stay in a vacation? What happened to those lines in 2021?
Well, all lines on my charts go up and to the right, so I assume that they were going up.
But like, oh, by a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
like a mountain. That line was like a mountain climb. So that is exactly what I saw as well. And that is human behavior, being tired of being cooped up, being tired of not traveling, not seeing the world, not getting outside. We're part of an era that has been living with Airbnb and the accessibility to travel, for, so long now that it's just, part of our DNA, part of our culture. And so no matter what, fires, hurricanes, recession, there's something bursting within us to get out and to go travel, go see people, go see friends, go see loved ones. If you look at the amount of items people are buying, like consumer goods purchases, those are down because people are addicted to travel. Like they just need it, they want it, even on a smaller scale. So even if there's a recession, even if that 50%, that you're saying a 50-50 actually happens and people kind of buckle down a little bit, does that mean they're not going to go on vacation? Or does that mean they're not going to go to Europe? Does that mean they're not going to go, farther? Or does that mean they're not going to stay in a luxury place? What does that mean? They're still going to travel. I'm going to still bet they're going to travel. And based on that, I'm going to act accordingly. Now, whether or not that means I buy Google ads or I go all in on organic social, that really depends on the location, the audience, and all of that. But I'm completely bullish on travel, regardless of what weird scenario is going on, even if everybody kind of pauses for a bit to collect their thoughts before they decide to book. So the booking window might get really short, but I'm still betting they're going to go somewhere. So I need to figure out where are they going to go, how much they're going to spend, why they're going to go there, and speak to them and resonate with them accordingly. What I saw in the COVID times was that Airbnb and Vrbo stopped advertising on Google Ads. They just stopped showing up in sponsored results on Google. Holy cow, that was such a huge opportunity. That drove the cost of Google Ads so far down. So if all I did was advertise to people who had no plans to travel because they couldn't, I got their email address, I got them to follow us on social. So and I got it for cheap because I wasn't competing with Airbnb anymore. How insane is that? So by the time the doors opened back up in 2021, I had a 20% increase in my audience size across the board that I got for less than I would have paid before. So I'm super happy I did that. And then after the hurricanes, the double whammy, that happened in Florida, organic social, like the brands that invested in organic social ended up having a 30% less hit than the brands that didn't. So everybody took a hit, right? Everybody lost bookings. But if you were on social media, if you were posting photos, videos, messages, if you spent time investing in your staff or even boosting any of those posts to say, here's what's happening, here's how we're engaging, here's how we're responding. The contact us page on those websites during those times it became one of the top 10 pages on the website. So if you have that page, if you're answering those questions, your hit, the loss that you took after that natural disaster was less than what you would have taken had you just remained silent and not invested at all.
Okay. So there's one word or a couple words you said there that I didn't necessarily pick up on or know what they are. What is organic social, and what is my strategy when I'm posting or doing organic social, whatever that is?
So organic social, it just means you're not doing a meta ad. You're not doing an advertisement on social.
Okay.
You're
So
just it's just
but this
uploading
is
it to
just me
Instagram.
posting.
This is just you posting.
All right. I'm good at organic social.
You are very good at organic social.
Now, what is paid social? Is that just like that I'm doing ads, or is it that I'm creating posts and then sort of promoting those posts?
There's two ways to do paid ads on social. One way is that you post the organic post first. You wait until it gets engagement, so people see that you're cool because you are, and then you and then you hit the boost button and you spend like 10, 15, $100 to push that post out to the rest of your audience, or even beyond to their friends. Now, you could come at it another way, which is through meta advertising. And meta advertising is like Facebook and Instagram, maybe even WhatsApp, but you can go in there and you can push out, your ad to an audience that is not following you on Instagram right now. It's just an audience that Instagram's going to find, that Facebook's going to find. You put your post there and then you pay to distribute it out.
Okay. I'm assuming that sort of stuff works, right?
Not all the time.
Not all the time. And I guess I'm sort of breaking this down and sort of the point of what you're saying of like during weird times of sort of doubling down on one of these things, like, and of sort of investing in organic social. And this is like maybe you've got, and you and as the owner, or someone on your team, that you guys are like, all right, maybe bookings are down a bit. Like maybe, and we don't have as much sort of to do in sort of the core business. So what are ways that we can sort of invest in the future business now, is sort of doubling down on some of the marketing items that don't always have to be like, and yes, you said you can get paid ads for cheap, and that's a way to sort of grow your paid following. But then there's also doing organic and sort of doubling down and growing your following through that. And then once you come out of it, once people do start really booking again, now I'm seeing the double benefits of both, like, and people are booking and your other channels are working again, but now you've got this bigger audience that you're able to market to directly. Is that sort of boiling down what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Just go into this, whatever this is this year, whatever this is,
Uh-huh.
go into it with the mindset that on the other side of this, there is going to be another mountain spike. Like just go into it assuming that. So even if you can't afford to spend X amount on Google Ads anymore, whatever it is, what is your path from here to there? Because there has to be a path. Don't stop. Don't stop anything on marketing, because you have to be there when the gates open back up to receive that. There's an existing pond, like you mentioned in your seminar, like if it's not growing, you have to eat someone else's lunch, right? Like you have to take someone else's guests if we're not growing in guests. So what is your plan between now and then to get all of that market share? There has to be a plan. Pick one that makes sense for you, but don't turtle up.
Okay. Well, Rebecca, I feel like that's a great sort of spot to end it on. Don't turtle up. And there's sort of chances to grow during downturns, and there's going to be sort of light at the end of the tunnel, no matter and sort of how dark it gets. I really appreciate you joining. If our listeners want to find you, learn more about you, follow you, how can they do that?
I am on LinkedIn all of the time.
Yeah.
I'm also on Instagram. My handle's at Rebecca Lombardo, all one word. Traditional spelling, Rebecca, Rebecca, and then Lombardo, Lombardo. So follow me on Instagram, follow me on LinkedIn, or reach out to you. We're connected as well, so that'd be great.
Awesome. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Jamie.